Hi, welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. This is a Wednesday Quick Hits episode. The big news that came out actually late Monday night was that Sony and Marvel have come to an agreement so that SpiderMan will be able to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This deal's kind of a handshake kind of deal. No money, reportedly he's changing hands. I guess Marvel and Sony both think that it's in their best interest. From the Sony side of things, their last Spider-Man film, Amazing Spider-Man 2, wasn't well received, didn't make that much money. And they see the huge success Marvel's having with their movies, so they probably figure if they can get Spider-Man some more exposure in Captain America Civil War, where Spider-Man's supposed to first appear, it can only help them by increasing the exposure of Spider-Man and seeing it done well. And then when they do another Amazing Spider-Man movie, supposedly in 2017, they can hope to piggyback off the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So with Spider-Man rebooting once again, I don't know if we're going to see another origin story. Kind of tired of seeing Uncle Ben die myself, but we do know that Andrew Garfield will no longer be playing Spider-Man, and the director for the first two movies, Mark Webb, will not be involved either. So this new Spider-Man movie is supposed to be co-produced by Amy Pascal, who just recently left her job as head of Sony, and Kevin Feige, the head honcho over at Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it certainly is exciting news for Marvel fans. They've been waiting a long time to see Spider-Man done right. Hopefully this is a step in the right direction. Also in some movie news, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who's been cast as Black Adam in the Shazam movie, did an interview recently where he mentioned that this Captain Marvel or Shazam movie will definitely be part of the greater cinematic universe of DC, so we could certainly see Black Adam fight Superman or Batman at some point. But the movie's not going to be tied in so tightly, especially since Black Adam himself is kind of off in his own little corner of the DC universe. Now to get to some of the books that came out today, February 11th. The first book I'm going to talk about is Secret Six #2. It's written by Gail Simone and the pencils are done by Ken Lashley. Inks are Drew Gasseri and Jason Wright handles the colors. This is only the second issue, and it picks up right where the first issue left off, with the main characters trapped in a box underwater. This book's very dark and gritty, which I find very interesting because part of the reason Gail Simone left Batgirl was because she felt the book was too dark and gritty and she wanted to lighten it. And at the time, that wasn't what the brass at DC wanted, which is kind of ironic because once she left the book and the editor left, then they decided to change and go to a lighter tone. So it's very interesting to see her doing a book at DC where her intent is for it to be very dark and gritty. And Ken Lashley's art, I've never been a fan of, but it does suit the tone of the book extremely well to begin with. But he's actually going to be leaving the book. Issue 3 comes out on March 11th, and Lashley does the art on that. However, the book's going to take a 2-month break along with all the rest of the DC books for the Convergence event, and then in June, Dale Eaglesham is going to be joining the book to handle the pencils. So, big fan of Dale, loved his work on Sinestro, so the art is definitely going to take a step up in my opinion, and hopefully the story starts progressing a little quicker as well. I don't know that I would recommend Secret Six. I am a fan of Gail Simone, but the book has just limped along through the first 2 issues, so I'm certainly not giving up on it yet, but I'm hoping for some real improvement soon. Some of the main characters in the Secret Six are characters I'm not familiar with. I think they're brand new to the New 52, but the fan favorite Catman is still there. And the previous incarnation of the Secret Six was a real critical hit, and it had a lot of fans. A lot of people were upset when it was canceled when the New 52 started, so I don't know if Gail Simone's going to be able to recreate the success of that book, but I'm going to hang around for a few more issues and see. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is Darth Vader #1 from Marvel. I'm not a big fan of reading Star Wars comics. I'm a huge fan of the movies, but for me something gets lost in translation. When I see these characters that I'm used to seeing larger than life on the big screen, dynamic in their movements and all these cool special effects, and then I see them on the comic page, I just feel like there's something missing there. Seeing the static images, it doesn't work that well for me. For whatever reason, you know, like I see Superman up on the big screen or Batman and it's fine. I don't have a problem. I think maybe because I had read so many Batman, Superman, and other superheroes in comics before I ever saw them on film. Whereas this is the other way around. I watched the Star Wars movies first, and then I've read a few of the Star Wars comics here and there, but I'm just not feeling it. So all that being said, the story is okay, not great. I feel like it's definitely a step down from the first 2 issues of the regular Star Wars comic, where the story there is very compelling, and so even though I'm not a huge fan of seeing Star Wars in this medium, I'll continue to read the regular Star Wars book because I want to see what's going to happen. For me, this Darth Vader issue 1, it almost seems too much like I could picture Hayden Christensen in the Darth Vader armor complaining, and it just, like I said, it just didn't work for me. Not a fan of it. Kieran Gillen's the writer on it, and I'm not sure if that was his intention, if he's going to show some progression with Vader as a character, so I may hang around for another issue or two and see if it improves. Where it does shine, however, is art-wise. Salvador LaRocca handles the art, and he does an extremely good job of showing the action scenes. Like I said, it's hard for me to not see these characters on the big screen and see all the special effects, but that being said, LaRocca does a great job with the restrictions of using static art to show the dynamics of lightsaber battles, and he also does a great job of making Vader look menacing. Also, I should mention the colors by Edward Delgado are done very well also. So it certainly is a beautiful book to look at. I just don't know if there's enough there for me to keep reading. I was honestly disappointed in the book. Vader's such an iconic villain, and seeing his interactions with the Emperor just left me feeling like in the story he was coming across as a much lesser character than he should be. Next book I'm going to mention is another Marvel book, Nightcrawler number 11. Now we know that the Nightcrawler series, written by Chris Claremont with pencils by Todd Knock and colors by Rachel Rosenberg, is going to be ending with issue 12. So this is the next to last issue. And just to give you a little setup of what's going on in Nightcrawler, let me read the little summary they have at the beginning of the book. When Nightcrawler received a telepathic distress call from Bloody Bess of the Crimson Pirates, he was teleported to a desert in China. There, Nightcrawler was attacked by the Crimson Pirates, who themselves were possessed by the evil Shadow King. With Bess's assistance, Nightcrawler managed to best the Shadow King. Free of the Shadow King's influence, the Crimson Pirates took advantage of the confusion in the aftermath of the battle and kidnapped two of Nightcrawler's students, Rico and Ziggy Karst. So I know a lot of people are probably going to wait until the last issue comes out and then pick up this 12-issue run in a trade. But don't sleep on this book. This is actually a very high-quality book. Chris Claremont, known for his huge, lengthy run on X-Men, a very good writer. He does tend to be a little wordy at times, and this book certainly has more dialogue than your typical comic on the stands today. But with beautiful Todd Knock art and a real swashbuckling feel that Nightcrawler suits perfectly as a character, this book is just a lot of fun. And that's a great way to really sum up the series as a whole. I'm very disappointed that Nightcrawler's coming to an end with issue 12, and hopefully after Secret War, maybe this creative team will come back to this character at some point. I feel like Claremont and Knock are a perfect marriage for this character, and like I said, the best way I can describe this book is just fun, and it reminds me of what comics are supposed to be. So it's one I definitely recommend taking a look at. And as I said, Todd Knock, extremely talented penciler, very good storytelling from panel to panel. There's a lot of characters in this book. As I mentioned in the summary, the two students of Nightcrawler are kidnapped, and in this issue he goes to rescue them. So there's tons of slave traders and other slaves in all the panels, and Knock does a great job of rendering all these characters very well. He must have had to work really hard on this issue, but it definitely shows. Pencils are beautiful, and also the colors by Rachel Rosenberg are extremely well done too. Very bright, and that helps add to the overall feel of fun and joyful book. Okay, the next book I'm going to mention is Divinity number 1 from Valiant Comics. I've been looking forward to this book for a long time. It's about a Russian cosmonaut who was launched off into space over 30 years ago. He's just returned from that mission with some real godlike powers. This issue is almost all set up though. I wanted it to feel more cosmic and more epic than it actually was. That being said, it was still an extremely enjoyable issue written by Matt Kent, and the pencils are handled by Trevor Hairsine. Inks are Ryan Wynn, and colors by David Barron. So they all did a bang-up job on this issue, and it certainly left me wanting issue 2 immediately. Let me talk a little bit about the art by Trevor Hairsine. Trevor's art, he uses very fine lines in his artwork, so he's one of those few artists whose stuff I actually enjoy more in black and white rather than in color. And that's just because once someone goes over his line work with inks and colors, it sometimes loses some of the fineness and some of the rendering. You don't get a chance to appreciate all the work Trevor's put in, especially in some of the smaller panels where the images aren't quite so big. It loses something. That being said, in the big panels and the splash pages is where his art really shines. Same things for the inks by Ryan Wynn and the colors by David Barron. In the big panels and the splash pages, the art just looks amazing. So even though, like I said, sometimes you lose a little bit of that in the smaller panels, the layouts are done well, and the storytelling from panel to panel is very good. I have a feeling Divinity is going to be one of those books where you don't realize how good issue 1 is until you've read the entire series. It posed a lot of questions. It looks like there's going to be some time travel involved. And one thing I should mention about Matt Kent's books is he drops little clues all along the way that you don't even realize you're seeing as you're reading it. Then once the series or arc is done and you go back and look at some of those previous issues, and you see all the little hints that were there all along. You can see in this one panel here where the hands are actually missing from his wristwatch. I'm sure that wasn't something that was just overlooked by the artist. I'm sure it's done on purpose, and it suits the time travel feel of the book. So basically, just to give a brief synopsis, this baby was abandoned when it was only a few days old. The state took this child in, and it turned out that he was an extremely smart individual, and so the state raised him specifically to handle this mission. So as I said, he's returned 30 years later with these incredible powers, and other than being introduced to this cosmonaut, Abram Adams, we don't know much more than that. The last half to third of the book is him returning, and we meet another character who's rock climbing. We don't really know what his significance is. We just know that this cosmonaut has landed, and apparently the Russians were ready and prepared for him to reappear at this time at this place because they had a couple of soldiers posted there ready for his return. So I'm anxiously awaiting issue 2 and hopefully some answers. The story is very intriguing, and I'm a big fan of Valiant and their books. All their stuff's high quality, and I'm sure this won't be any different. I have a feeling Divinity as a title is going to be very important to the Valiant universe, as well as Divinity the character is going to be extremely important to the universe. So if you haven't, here's your chance. Jump into the Valiant universe with Divinity 1. See how the story goes, and I have a feeling by the time it's done you're going to be picking up a lot more Valiant books. Now on to the final book this week, the book of the week. I chose Harley Quinn, the Valentine's Day Special. Just like the regular series of Harley Quinn, it's written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. Most of the art in the book is handled by John Timms as far as pencils go, and I wasn't familiar with him, but he does a bang-up job. He makes Harley look beautiful. The action scenes are handled very well. Good storytelling, good pacing, good panel layout. There's also a couple dream sequences, and it's quickly becoming a hallmark in Harley Quinn books that when there's a dream sequence, the pencils are handled by another artist, and it gives a way to differentiate, and you realize that you're seeing a dream sequence, basically. So there's 2 dream sequences in this book. One of them is handled by Ben Caldwell, and the other by Aaron Campbell, and there's also a couple pages done by Tony Siles. I suppose all the artists inked all their own work because there's no inkers listed for the book, but Hi-Fi and Paul Mounts handled the colors. I think not having an inker listed is something we're going to come to see more and more often, as a lot of these artists are going digital and they're drawing it on tablets and then transferring them over to the colors, and the colors go right on top of the digital art, so you don't really need an inker. But this book certainly didn't lack for not having anyone inking the art. Like I said, it's extremely well done, very beautiful book. So basically the story is that Bruce Wayne has agreed to be auctioned off as a date for charity. So as soon as Harley finds out, she decides that she must have a date with Bruce Wayne. So she goes and robs some rich Wall Street guy who he himself had all this money hidden away in his house because he'd stole it from a bunch of investors. So money in hand, Harley goes, she wins a date with Bruce Wayne, but meanwhile Bruce gets kidnapped by somebody else trying to save some fish and marine life. So Harley comes to his rescue, and they end up having a great date, share a kiss. So all in all, it was a really fun, lighthearted issue, just like the regular Harley Quinn series that's found so much success in the marketplace for DC and Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. They're really doing a great job of playing Harley as somebody who isn't necessarily bad, but isn't necessarily good. She's just Harley Quinn. She's just herself, and she's funny and irreverent, and you don't need to have tons of DC knowledge. You don't need to know a bunch about continuity or the history of DC. You can just pick up this book and read it and have fun. Much like the Nightcrawler book I mentioned earlier. It's what comics are supposed to be all about, in my opinion. The fun story, witty dialogue, and beautiful art. So Harley Quinn Valentine's Day Special, my pick of the week. One thing I want to mention before I go, I've got another project that I've been working on for a few weeks now, and I'm actually in the process of building a website for the Comic Source. So once that's up and running, you guys can go over and check out this new project that I have, as well as being able to see sketches in my sketch gallery and watch these episodes there if you'd rather watch them there instead of on YouTube. So I want to thank everybody out there for the support, and as far as the new project goes, I can't tell you exactly what it is right now, but I will say that it's top secret. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.